Hello and welcome to the Three Will Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, and I'm here with Tommy Ryan. How's it going, Tommy?
It's going well, Danny.
Good. Today we have a book that we're going to go through, a book that I read through recently, actually read through a couple of times, and it is called The Ultimate Question 2.0, and it is about Net Promoter Score. Now, you've run into Net Promoter Score a couple times with our clients, is that right?
Yeah, definitely in the customer experience or customer service departments. They really care about that NPS score.
Cool. And we have up on our, for many years as a Microsoft partner, they would, as part of becoming a partner and getting a certification around being a partner or a certain level of a partner, they would have you take a TNS Global, which is some organization, would actually go through and interview or have your customers take a survey about you. And one of the things I brag about, because I'm often bragging about us, but the last 4 times we took it, they would tell you sort of what percentage of the Microsoft partners you were the top part of, and we were the top 5% the last 4 times we took it. So good job to you and delivery and for doing great work on projects.
Yeah, it feels crazy to be in the top 5%.
We'll take it. So what happened is, reason why I mentioned that is, that's gone away, and so I wanted to find some way of capturing sort of how are we doing on projects, and so I ran into this by hearing about it sort of as a third party from projects, and then seeing that it was something that we were starting to do for some of our clients, and so I picked up the book. I was at the library and I saw the book and I picked it up and I read through it the first time and I liked it.
There's still libraries?
There's still libraries.
Okay.
Yes, there are. They're great places, Tommy. You might want to check one out sometime.
My library is Audible.
And so I picked it up, read it through, liked it so much that I ended up ordering the book off of Amazon and having it delivered, and then I've marked it all up. So I wanted to go through the book with you. For folks who are listening who haven't gone through the book, this probably will serve as a little bit of a summary of what's covered in the book. So this is done by
Cliff Notes, what I liked in college.
Yes, you're very familiar with Cliff Notes, aren't you? So it's done by a couple of folks from Bain Consulting. So this is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last names because I'm not going to. But I wanted to get us started with sort of what is a definition of what NPS is. So I'll just use NPS as an abbreviation for Net Promoter Score. And the key question for this is on a 0 to 10 scale, how likely is it that you would recommend us, or this product service brand, to a friend or colleague? So that's the Net Promoter, sort of the question. That's the ultimate question that we're asking people. And then after that, you can do a follow-up question to this as well, which is, what's the primary reason for your score? So that tells you a little bit about why did they give you why did they give you 10? Why did they give you 8? Why did they give you 5? So you're trying to understand sort of the main reason behind that. And so then what you get are promoters. Promoters are people who respond either a 9 or a 10. And those are typically people whose lives have been enriched by their relationship with the company. So they're loyal customers. Then you have a 7 or an 8 is what's considered a passive. And then you have detractors, which is anything lower than that, so a 6 or below. And so what you end up doing is taking from this, and you can calculate your Net Promoter Score, which is the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors. So you could have the case of having a couple of folks who are passives, and that would lower your score because obviously the percentage of promoters would go down at that point in time. In general, anybody who has a positive Net Promoter Score is a good score. They have some well-known published scores that are out there for different industries. I looked through. There was a forum that was created for Net Promoter Score called the NPS Loyalty Forum. And it's good to see a lot of our clients are in this forum, but as a group of companies that were using this, basically giving some feedback and input into Net Promoter Score. One of the things that I liked about this is in the introduction, the how likely question is merely, and I'm quoting, this is a quote from page 14 of the book, the how likely question is merely a practical shorthand for the question of whether you are observing the golden rule. And that's treating others like you would like to be treated. I thought that was kind of a very insightful thing. Mm-hmm. If I jump into that, so I just hit the introduction. One of the things that they get started with is sort of bad profits, good profits, and the ultimate question. And they started out with, we live and work in a web-savvy world in which customers have near-perfect information. Only companies that put customer at the very center of their operations can successfully compete in such a world. Many companies also want to make themselves more mission-driven than profit-driven. So that's part of, I think for you and I, last couple of weeks talking about our values and what those values are is, more driven around the mission of what we're doing than just the profits.
Definitely.
Yep. The concept of what they call bad profits. So you probably have experienced this before, which is there is a bad type of growth. So if you could imagine, let's say, for instance, I've experienced this in the past where I had an overage on my data I remember I bought a card for my laptop and one night it did a backup of all my stuff. And I ended up the next day getting an email the morning after and logging in and noticing that I had, it was like over $3,000 in overage charges.
Oops.
Now the company will make a profit off of that. Yeah.
How did that work out on your expense sheet? Did anyone notice that?
Yeah, did anyone notice that? I think Linda would notice that, yes. Through some mad negotiation skills, we ended up working that down. And but I think they realized that this was one of the things that's interesting from this is that I recently, for my home internet, had a similar situation, and I noticed I was going to get dinged again. And midway through this, they changed their policy on it, and they gave you 3 months of, 3 months of mulligans.
Right.
Which I think they did this. Yeah, this is Comcast. And they ended up doing this because I think they probably got feedback on the Net Promoter Score saying, like, I wouldn't recommend you guys because I got overage charges when I started using your service. So I have a feeling that was a part of the feedback cycle that they were getting from customers, which was really neat to see them do that. Whenever a customer feels misled, mistreated, ignored, or coerced, profits from that customer are bad. Okay. We don't want bad profits, right? Because those folks could easily they're looking for an alternative at that point.
That's not how you build loyal customers, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
No one likes to feel tricked into a service. They want to feel good at the end of the day that it's been something they want to buy again. Interesting
to see they cover a couple of companies that some pretty well-known companies in this case. For instance, Vanguard, this is a quote, not long ago, Vanguard reduced prices by as much as 1/3 for customers who had recently made large investments or had maintained healthy balances for an extended period of time. So they're really trying to take care of those folks who are their core business. And basically there are a lot of benefits that they ended up seeing coming from this. Another one that, in the pursuit of good profits, Amazon could easily afford to advertise more than it does. Instead, it channels its investments into free shipping, lower prices, and service enhancements. Founder and CEO Jeff Bezos has said, if you do build a great experience, customers tell each other about that. Costco, the leader in customer loyalty among warehouse retailers, rocketed from startup to the Fortune 50 in less than 20 years while spending next to nothing on advertising and marketing. Don't get any ideas, Tommy. Its customers are so loyal that the company can rely on positive word of mouth for growth. I mean, how many people do you talk about, like your experience at Costco, sort of let the some of the bargains that you got? I mean, typically you're hearing from other people about.
That's right.
You hear from other people about the return policy, right? You're like, Costco will take anything back, and that leads to these conversations with other folks.
Frank Ryan uses that all the time.
Shout out to Frank. Let's see. Yes. So Isidore Sharp, founder and chairman of the Four Seasons Hotel Group. Our success all boils down to following the golden rule. Golden rule behavior is the basis for loyalty, and loyalty is the key for profitable growth. I sort of mixed two quotes there, but I thought that was interesting. The second was from Enterprise, another company that really focuses in on Net Promoter Score. Good stuff. What is the question that can tell good profits from bad? Simplicity itself. How likely is that you would recommend this company or this product or this friend to a colleague? The metric that produces this is the Net Promoter Score. Cool. So jumping further into this, reflecting on our findings, we realized that they made perfect sense. Loyalty, after all, is a strong and value-laden concept, usually applied to family, friends, and country. People may be loyal to a company that they buy from, but they may not describe what they feel in those terms. If they really love doing business with a particular provider of goods and services, however, what's the most natural thing for them to do? Of course, recommend that company to someone they care about. So again, this is, you've taken what's nice about this is taking the really long surveys that we've typically had and just narrowing it down to, on ours is on our customer satisfaction, it's really narrowed down to 3 questions, and having really short format for this is a nice thing. You're really trying to figure out what is that key question we should ask. Cool.
Yeah, and I noticed that on GoToMeeting, at the end of some of your meetings, they pop that up and you say, ooh, that's the Net Promoter Score right there in action.
NPS merely measures the quality of a company's relationship with its current customers, and high-quality relationships are necessary but not a sufficient condition for profitable growth. So here they describe some things that you also need to pay attention to maintaining a profitable business. But they're saying how important that is. One of the other things I'm sort of jumping off of that I got out of this book is this gives you something just a lot. Everybody can measure their financials, and that's a very, you have a hard numbers there. And for this, they're saying to monitor this, just like you monitor your financials, you want to know what your NPS score is, because it's really telling you how are you doing as a company. Chapter 5, the rules of measurements. They point out that most surveys are too long. They create unnecessary complexity and waste customers' time. They are designed to generate research reports, not daily frontline learning and behaviors. They are often anonymous, which eliminates the possibility of closing the loop with individual customers. They are constructed in the language of the researcher, not the customer. Response rates are typically low, so the results are often unreliable. I think that was one of the things that as we're doing this, it's not like we're having customer interactions like thousands each day. We're typically wrapping up projects and have 2 or 3 sponsors on those projects. So principle 1 with the rules of measurement: ask the ultimate question and very little else. Choose a scale that works and stick to it. We're doing a 0 to 10 scale. It's interesting that they have the 0 in there because everybody you have the concept of 1, which is first place, and that can sometimes throw people off. But if you have a 0 in there, they realize that's the lowest. So that helps break up some confusion about that.
That's a good idea.
Aim for a high response. What was interesting is they go into some of the rules of measurement and actually saying sometimes the people who wouldn't give you the 10s will not respond back to the survey. So your real Net Promoter Score is typically lower than what you get back because they're not thrilled with your service. So there's you You can factor that in as you look at your NPS, so you're going around bragging about it, but most likely the people who don't have good things to say about you won't even take the time to do the survey. They give some...
And what about being anonymous or not? What's the kind of rule of
The
thumb
issue,
there?
the issue that I mentioned earlier, where you can't do, they suggest doing closed feedback loops on this, and that's one of the things. There's no way for you to do a closed feedback loop unless you have the contact information for that person, and so it's you have to do that in order to be able to have that processed for follow up.
Okay.
And a lot of these, like if you like one case they talked about, like the Apple Store, if you go in there and after you're done and you rate them, you'll get follow up from the store manager about your experience if you put in a negative experience, and there's no way they could do that unless, well, Apple does it because they track everything on you. But you need to have some way of following up and closing the loop. So that's why I don't even have an option for ours that on our website to do it anonymously. I'm sure you can also you could use anonymous surveys if you wish to. Apple Retail, I just mentioned them. The Retail's division's mission, he declared, was to enrich the lives of customers and employees. The stores would be places for people to gather and learn, not just buy. They would be designed to encourage an ongoing relationship with customers, not merely a one-off purchase transaction. The delighted customers, Johnson believed, would tell their friends and colleagues about their wonderful experience at the store. He envisioned the neighborhoods surrounding each Apple store become populated with customer advocates who would promote the brand and act as missionaries to help convert PC-using friends and neighbors into Mac enthusiasts. Sounds religious. We're sending out missionaries. So the mission of Apple Retail, similarly, is to enrich lives. And a vital role for NPS is rigorously measuring how consistently the division achieves this mission. When customers score their experience at a store, a 9 or a 10, Apple can assure that Apple's employees have enriched those customers' lives, and then so have enriched their own. Woo. About halfway through the book, getting through here. One of the things that was interesting is they say you can use the NPS score for employees, which they call the eNPS. So your employees, as you can imagine, the question there is how likely would you recommend to your friends and family working at ThreeWell? So it's a question about internally sort of looking at this. So Apple Retail uses this, Rackspace uses this. They have settled on one central question to determine employee engagement. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely is it that you would recommend this company as a place to work? So I thought that was interesting that you can use it internally as well to see how well you're internally doing. Close the loop. Chapter 8 is closing the loop with customers. So there's a story in here about mailing from a cable TV provider, calling in, and you can the computerized voice began the survey with these words: "Please provide feedback on the performance of your representative. I ignored that request because the rep excelled at what she had trained to do." Basically, this was something where the issue wasn't the person. The issue was the process and the support system behind the person. And understanding that, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, or maybe even a couple months ago, of how we were trying to buy a service, and the person, it wasn't so much that person, but it was the whole support system behind it, and you needed to have some way of understanding that there was an issue. And in this case, they're talking about how are we going to respond to this? The end of the questionnaire ends up with, "We really value your business," and this guy, he's upset because you dealt with a very bad experience, and it's almost like it puts a really bad taste in their mouth if you've had a bad experience and then telling them, "We really care about your business." And then he talks about an experience with Verizon Wireless where he put in a negative response. and he wanted to see what the feedback. He's put a 3 out of 10, and a few days later, I found a message on my home answering machine from a manager at the Verizon store where I had purchased my cell phone. I called her back. She explained that she had received my feedback, and she wondered if I could take a few minutes to discuss how she might improve my experience. So that's one of the things with this is if you do get any detractors, it gives you or I the chance to go back to them and talk with them and say, well, what is it that we could do better? Part of this we cover in the retrospectives, I think, as well, is getting some of that feedback. But interesting to read that. Then there's a section on creating customer communities, groups of people that provide regular feedback on the company's products and services. For a lot of the Net Promoter Score, the customer service stuff that we've done, has it been typically internal communities or external communities, or what does that look like so far? For some of the companies that I know I'm doing a lot of talking. For you mentioned that we've helped out with Net Promoter Score for some of our customers. Has it been for customer facing, or has it been employee facing, or a combination of the two, or what does it look like so far?
So customer facing, and then there's one solution that is really employee driven, but based on customer experiences. So what they're hearing either as someone in the store or someone just out there in the world listening or getting feedback about their services and ways to improve. And so they're essentially submitting that as a suggestion and having a closed loop process to make sure they get back and close that loop.
Nice.
And also using the NPS to justify certain projects, to say, this will help this aspect that has driven, poor NPS scores.
Gotcha. We've got to got through the majority of the book. The last part of it is really about sort of some of the barriers that you'll run into when trying to put this into place. A lot of it you need to have the management of the company behind it, which is a lot. I think you guys were, both you, Bruce, and JM have all been very, behind this as a way of measuring and as a way of understanding how we're doing on projects. But you really need to have that as a sort of a part of the process of what we do. I know I've been tying this into, as we're wrapping up projects, to go and do get our Net Promoter Score out of that, and it's been wonderful. I mean, a part of this, I think, that is great as well, is that customers know that you're doing this, and they know that there's going to be a chance for them to provide input, hopefully positive, but also if you do have a bad experience, that we care about it. I think when you're working with smaller companies, one of the things that's really nice about that is that ultimately the owners of the company really care about providing a great service. And I think this is one of the ways that we're really checking every single project that we did a good job.
Yeah, if you care about it, you would measure it. I mean, I think we find that we have the best management around a concept or idea or a value based on measuring it. And so it's great that we're doing that. I think we've cared about it over the years, and we've tried to collect that information one way or the other, but I think the NPS score is a very nice, simple way to do that, and a standard way to do that. And it's nice that these surveys have gone down to, we used to have like a 2-page survey, now it's down to 3 questions. And so I think that we get more participation that way, and we don't overburden our customer with filling out information that we can't really act on. And it's just data.
And some of the things that I've done just to encourage people a little bit more is like I have a Starbucks gift card just to say thank you for taking the time to take the survey. And on the form as well, it's got a question about, are you able to receive, gift cards? I don't want to get them in trouble with their corporate if they're not able to receive any gift cards. But that's just been another way, I think, of a real way of somebody saying, hey, we're going to take the time to send a gift card as a follow-up as well. helps promote this. And
Yeah, I mean, allows people to quote. You give them a thank you to fill it out. The only thing that you worry about is does that impact what they would rate you? And I don't know. I haven't thought through that process.
if it's just it's $10. If it was $100, then or something that was it's more of just a gesture would be what I'd be interested to hear if people want to comment on this. For me, it was more of I've just seen this used before for other marketers use the small gift card, the thank you with a coffee type of concept, and it's easy enough to download it and put it onto your card, and the next day they're buying a scone and a coffee thanks to you because they took a little bit of time out of their day. So. It's not a great amount of money, but it's something that's just a way of saying
I didn't know if the book said anything about that.
No, whether they said to try different things with getting participation, and so whatever it is that you want to try. So that was sort of one of the things I wanted to try to see how that would. They're not. It's not like I'm saying I'm going to send you a gift card if you give us a 10. They do say there are parts of chapters that are tricky.
I get this from Toyota.
Ooh.
I'm sorry to say that, but you get the service department that tells you need to. I mean, they almost tell you need to give the highest score. Is there or you get this question?
Or will threaten you.
Well, you get this question of why you wouldn't give me a 10?
Yeah.
Just let me know if there's anything that I need to do to make sure that you provide me a 10. And I don't like that.
No, I don't.
I mean, and
I will not give you a 10 because you asked me that question.
Yeah,
it seems subversive.
Yeah, it's almost like a guilt trip.
Yeah.
That if you don't give me a 10, I'm going to get in trouble. And at the end of the day, they should want to get honest feedback so they can know when things are not going so well for their customers. Otherwise, they'll get 10s all the time, and then the customer goes away, and they don't know why.
It's funny because there are companies, companies that will audit your NPS, basically make sure you've got a sound system put into place, and some folks will try to trick the system where they'll not give a customer that they know has had a bad experience will not give them a way of giving feedback.
Right.
So that's a way of gaming the system.
That's bad.
But you need to it needs to be consistent, and that like for us, I'm trying to make sure that on every project as we're sending out the last invoice, that I'm attached into that, and we'll get this feedback on every single project. Right. But yeah, it was interesting to read. Anything else that you've experienced so far with Net Promoter Score? I know I'm starting to cover it in the company meetings where we're seeing it. I'm doing it both overall NPS, which I think is like a 94, which is wonderful to see. And then for that quarter, I'm giving a quarterly NPS, which was lower because we had some people who were 8s who we didn't interact with that much. I thought that was kind of interesting. We had some small interactions with some folks, and they filled out the survey. And I think if we did have a full-fledged project with them, we might get a higher score, or get a 9 or a 10. But it's just interesting to see that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because we know we're not perfect, so we want to hear that when we're not, so we can work on improving. And you can't improve unless you get honest feedback.
Yep. This is really rewarding to see this. I've liked hearing back from folks, and especially the quotes that I'm hearing back as far as why they gave us a 10. It's just it feeds me. I think it feeds you, and it's really nice to hear sort of that they want to work with us again if they have the opportunity to work with us again, which is
right. A big part of what gets us up in the morning. Is hearing that. Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tommy.
I like your socks.
Hey, let me see yours.
These are repeats, but those look like.
I think these are new. They're a little.
They look new to me.
Yeah, a little crazy. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to this. One of the neat things about working with ThreeWill is that we will get your Net Promoter Score at the end of the projects. We do care about successful projects, and so especially if you're doing anything SharePoint related, technology-wise, we're a great company to come and talk to. Definitely drop by our website and check out our services. But thank you for doing this, Tommy, and thank you everybody for listening. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Adios.